Good afternoon, everyone. Almost actually good evening. We're getting close to that time frame. How is everyone doing today? It is Trending Thursday, and this is Carol Sue, aka Nani Boss, live with you.
Sisters. Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0 on this May 4th. And as we always say on May 4th, may the 4th be with you. Obviously coming from the Star Wars movie. And I heard something pretty funny today that I want to share off the bat, and I started cracking up and I was cutting onions. So I wasn't sure if my eyes were tearing up because of what I heard, or if because I was cutting the onions, and maybe a little bit of both. The phrase was, "You cannot regulate stupid."
Yeah, I'm actually in the middle of an email, and I kind of feeling that vibe. You cannot duplicate stupid. I'm not even going to go into it, but
regulate.
That's what I said. Regulate stupid. And I guess some people would say, well, you kind of can, because you could put the ignore button on, and you don't. You can't. It's not. In other words, for me, it's a reflection of whatever the situation is, and you can't. It's not your circus, not your monkey to fix. It just is what it is.
Yeah, so that kind of had me in stitches a little bit. And you know what? It's always good to laugh.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And especially on this Trending Thursday, we want to know what is trending with everyone. I have not even looked at social media, other than I was posting a few pictures from us kayaking today, which was a lot of fun. But I was kind of happy that I really didn't get on social media. I didn't check emails, and now I'm reaping the benefit of not seeing the emails. So I've got quite a few to go through and deal with, or respond to. So I don't know what's trending out there. I'm going to be honest. What is trending? And I always say, let's be the trendsetters, or we tell our viewers and listeners to be the trendsetters. But what is trendsetting? I have no idea.
The other thing that was trending was Ed Sheeran, the famous musician, was in, there's been this ongoing dispute with one of his songs, somebody saying that he did an infringement, copyright infringement, and he was found not worthy of that. In other words, that he obviously didn't, excuse me, infringe on this person's copy song. Now, what I found interesting, and I don't know a lot about copyright, even, from working in the legal field, I don't know a lot about copyright. But what I did learn, which I thought was interesting, that there are a few chords. I think they said it was like 4 to 6, and I could be off on the number, that musicians, songwriters always use. And I guess it's just like in the and I know I'm gonna screw this up, the octave, the level, the octave sound of it can be different, obviously, for every song. So it may feel like the same beat, but it's a different song because a songwriter has written this song based on how they wrote the song, not on somebody else's song. So I thought it was, I learned a lot today.
Well, the only piece I know about copyright is I do know that you cannot copy, you cannot forward, you cannot, I think it's copy forward or post and repeat someone's email. That much I know, without the author's permission. That's an infringement, a copyright infringement. That's the only one that I know of. And I found that to be interesting, because that was something, I knew there was something to it, because I know depending on what I am working on at any given time, some companies and or coaches and or clients or whatever, they have that as part of their email, that, to forward this email, copy, forward, repeat it, whatever. is a copyright infringement without getting written permission from the original author. So I thought that was interesting because obviously there are a lot of situations where you do forward an email. And, did not know that. So I think that's, I sort of knew about it, but not to, the extent of where I started thinking about, like, how many times do we forward an email, or we forward information? And that is a copyright infringement unless you go, obviously, I'm not talking about like, hey, guess what's on sale? Let me forward you the link, or here's the code for, coupon, blah, blah, blah. I don't mean things like that. I mean like written words from an individual, whether it's personal, business, whatever it may be. If you forward it without the author's knowledge, that is a copyright infringement. If you copy and paste it, it's also an infringement. So I didn't know that. I mean, I knew part of it, but not all of it. So I thought that was interesting.
That definitely is interesting. And for instance, and this kind of came up about a week or so ago, where, a lot of the books that I get in on the Stories podcast, some of them, send it to me via PDF. And I thought, I hope that they don't do this. Obviously, I would not forward, like somebody sent me this great book. I would not forward it. That would be, I would never do that. That just is ethically and morally wrong, in my opinion. But yeah, I can see where that could be potentially a little dicey, depending, and maybe it's something that somebody, could be innocently done. I get it, but I typically won't forward anything unless I know it is the person, like, oh, I didn't send you. Oh yeah, you did. Here it is. Let me send it back to you. I've had a lot of that, of course, we're in my area, working in the legal field for sure.
Right. And, like I said, it's interesting because you're really getting from a place of, a person's words, maybe it's, hey, oh my God, I came up with this great poem, or, this is information that I have, and you're, having this conversation via email. And the bottom line is, you have to get written consent from the author. So if it's something that, even because a lot of people, when they hear the word author, they think of a book, they think of a song, they think of a poem, but you don't necessarily think about email. Which we, so in that case, we're all authors. If you're doing emails, you're an author. Some emails are better than others. We have to admit that. It was funny. Speaking of forward, I was sending out an email and they had to reproduce it. So I said to them, doing this from my phone, got that, I got the fat fingers going here, because obviously now when you're typing out anything on a cell phone and you're in your email, I said, just double check it, because I saw the first word was incorrect. And I didn't have a signal, so I just let them know, just to do that. And then I caught, they did it, but they didn't, because sometimes when you have a similar word or whatever, and the word was sunbathe, but it auto-corrected to sunbath, so they didn't catch that. So it's kind of weird how sometimes even spell check works. It doesn't always, even if you're doing a grammar check, which obviously the word would be sunbathe versus sunbath, but sometimes applications don't catch those things.
Well, and that is true. And that's why I do not like spell check. The only time I will use spell check is, like, for instance, when I participated in different anthologies in writing my chapter, I'll read it several times. I edit, I read it again, I read it. And when I am satisfied with how it looks, then I will spell check it. Because
right.
If you do if and it says of, like if I was to do this, but it says of to do this, that doesn't make sense. Spell check is not going to catch that.
No, and it's just funny. And that there's like the email that I use, what I do love about it, when of course I'm on my computer, is it automatically does spell check and grammar. And the way that they do that is it's underlined in red, like, hey, this could be worded differently, or and then if it's a spelling error, it automatically gives you suggestions. But it also does it with the grammar piece. So I do like that. Or sometimes I'll copy and paste and I'll put it into, say, a Word document, because Word will do that as well. So it's kind of just and it's funny from the grammar piece, how Google operates versus Word, Microsoft Word.
Mhm.
They sometimes one will catch something, the other one won't, and the other one will catch this and the other one won't. So it's like sometimes I'll go back and forth just to double check it. And then what I tend to do more and more of, because when you are looking at the screen versus having it printed and you're reading it from a paper, whole different experience. So I could reread a Word document over and over again, spell check it, grammar check it, whatever. But if I don't print it out, and I could read it and I won't catch anything. As soon as I print it out, I catch something. So it's so weird how people's mind, when they're reading something, and then obviously goes to the brain, deciphers whatever, versus reading it from a piece of paper versus the screen, how kind of different that is. And I don't know if that happens with everybody. It definitely happens with me.
Right. And the other thing too with writing, whether it's maybe you're doing a proposal, maybe it's some type of letter to a client, like, oh, if you've read it, but you're like, you know what, let me have somebody else read it. I will, excuse me, I will often do that because, a lot of times, like for instance, my book cover for my book, I've had it on my desktop for probably 2 years now. And yes, I am still dragging my feet, but I had somebody look at it and they picked out a couple words. I mean, how many times have I looked at it on the back cover while I wrote something about, and I'm like, oh my God, I've looked at this how many times? And
Right. And that's a lot of times exactly when you're looking at something over and over again. And that's why it's so good to have fresh eyes to look at it, or multiple people to look at it and say, hey, just want to double check. What do you think? Tell me if there's something wrong or if something doesn't sound right. So I always do that. But for me, I found like John's working on his mom's celebration of life, and what he's going to be reading. And I print it out for him every single time. He said, well, you don't have to. I just keep making changes or whatever. I said, no, but it's a different perspective. Especially where it's something that you're going over, like with a fine tooth comb, and I don't like the way that sounds. I want to use this word instead. To me, and then you have also the opportunity, which I also find is very handy, is to read it aloud. When you read it, and someone hears it, or you hear yourself, oh, I didn't mean to say it like that, or that doesn't sound right. So I love doing that. So I guess, I don't know, learning different things about, an author and what it encompasses, not just books, not just poetry, not just song, but emails. So I guess that's what's trending. Learning something new is trending.
learning something new. Yes. And then the other thing, well, actually it was a question somebody asked me. So sometimes in the show notes, and by the way, I'm such a nerd with show notes. I love writing, obviously. Sometimes I use the word spicy and they're like, what does that mean? And I'm glad somebody asked, because I was hoping that somebody would. So spicy to me, and I learned this from Mrs. Lee, the English teacher from Cromwell High School.
Oh, yeah, Mrs. Lee.
It's one of those sidebar words. Spicy means potentially potentially controversial, a tough subject, or something out of the norm is basically how I remember her describing it as. So I use that a lot in my show notes, and I said a little spicy, or however I word it. And so I want to thank you to the person who asked me that. I thought that was a great question.
That is a great question. And, Mrs. Lee had the opportunity of not only being your teacher, she was my teacher, and I believe Victor's teacher as well. I'm
Yes.
not sure about Fran, but I know she had 3. And she goes, how many more are there of you? I need to know.
Well, yeah, and of course, the first day that I was in Mrs. Lee's class and, went around and your name and Janice Casella. She immediately stopped. You're a Casella? I said, yeah. Oh, Lordy, or whatever she said.
Yeah, I got along with her great. She was feisty. She had this uncanny sense of fashion. But she was a no nonsense teacher. Like I often think of, because she's obviously not with us anymore, what she would think what's going on in the school systems today. Because these
Oh,
old school teachers, they'd be like, what the HELL?
she would not be standing for it. I can say that was such.
And I think of her. I think of the art teacher. She was a hot ticket too, from Noah Webster and from Cromwell High School. And I'm trying to think, there's a couple other ones. The science teacher. Oh gosh, what was his name? I'm drawing a blank right now.
I remember
Can't think of it.
I remember the art teacher's name, but I think almost positive he was just middle school, Mr. G. John.
No, this was also a male, but he was I can't. That's not who it was. It was somebody else. Drawing a total blank. But anyways, it is Trending Thursday. We want to know what is trending for you. We've decided, just because of different topics that we're talking about, that learning something new is trendy. It's not only trending, it's trendy, because it really shows and showcases that you're willing to not close your mind off. You're willing to maybe learn something that you thought it maybe been one way and it was wrong all along, and then you learned the right way of doing it. Or just different facets of things that are really important, like being an author, whether it's your email, whether it's a book, whether it's a song, poetry, whatever it may be. Your words matter because you're the author. Are you authorizing and giving people permission to use your words? And so I'm going to go ahead and say that everyone has permission to say thank you. Everyone has permission to say please. I'm sorry. I love you. Are you okay? You are blessed. Those are wonderful phrases that we should be repeating and putting out in the universe, and making sure that whoever we come in contact know those things. So I kind of think that's kind of cool.
I think that's a great idea. And you are certainly allowed to use my word, spicy, with its meaning. And on that note,
Love it.
My name is Janice, aka Wellness Diva 5.0, a studious student from Mrs. Lee's English class, and I am with two
sisters, and this is Carol, aka also a studious teacher. Well, I wouldn't actually use the word studious, because that really wouldn't, in that time frame, would not really suffice. I was probably more the spicy. But what I will say is I did enjoy her learning. There's a lot of teachers that I still resonate with, maybe a way that they taught, maybe I learned something really cool from them, or maybe I just really just enjoy them as a human being. And, it's so funny when you do that and you look back on people that have impacted your life, adding value, teaching, learning. And sometimes we don't appreciate we're in that moment with them. And it takes many years later to do that. So with that, thank all those that have taught you, that continue to teach you. And with that, this is Carol, so aka Naughty Bus, live with two sisters. And we want to wish you a great, great Trending Thursday. Make sure you're a trendsetter too. Don't just wait for the trend. And also, like, what's trendy out there to you? I mean, think about that for a second. We will see you tomorrow, Friday, for a Fantabulous Friday. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Oh, by the way, we'll be on at 12:15, a little later than normal.
That's right.
So much, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.